Hey everybody, before we get to this week's show, I just want to remind you that my wife is fighting breast cancer. So please continue to keep her in your prayers. We thank you very much. We're feeling your prayers. Please continue to pray for my wife, Lindsay, and complete healing in her body in the name of Jesus.
So we know that where this is eventually leading is if you don't have this mark, you can't buy or sell, you can't get food, you can't do anything. But what this looks like today is they're offering us all sorts of tech that's just fun and convenient. And they absolutely understand the herd mentality and the psychology of humanity, that human beings, we don't like to be left out. We like to fit in. And this is why there's so much in scripture about standing alone. So what they're doing now is they're giving us unimportant tech, just stuff that's fun and games and Angry Birds and all this silly stuff, right? But you can't have any of this tech unless you sign a contract. In other words, you're hitting a button that says, I agree. You've just given permission and you don't even know what you've given permission for. So we're so used to hitting I agree with no consequences that if we just keep barreling forward, agreeing to everything that we download or that we want to interact with, eventually that fine print is going to leap off the screen and it's going to bite us in the butt. And so we have to start making decisions about what we or who we give permission to.
All right, today we got Vicki Joy Anderson back on the show. How are you?
Hey, Tony, I am awesome, and it's great to be back.
I'm glad you're here. And you and I'll tell you, every time I have you on, I get excited leading up to it. And last night, I was looking at the text message that you had sent over to me because we had a phone call that started this conversation that people are about to hear today. I remember I was standing at my son's soccer field watching him practice and talking to you about dream technology and hacking people's dreams with technology. And I was like, in what world is this normal for people to be standing and watching their son at soccer practice, their 7-year-old son, learning how to dribble a soccer ball and talking about hacking people's dreams on the sideline?
I love it. I love it.
But that's where it started. And I texted you yesterday. I was like, so what are we talking about tomorrow? And you sent me over this text message. I was like, oh, I started drooling. I was like, this is going to be so much fun. Hopefully it translates to the audience, but I think we're going to have enough nuggets for people to start connecting dots on things. I hope that at the end of this conversation, we connected all the dots for people, but I don't want to put that pressure on me or you. But I do believe that this conversation is going to spark a lot of imagination and a lot of what ifs in people's brains that we don't even think to bring up today. And I highly encourage people, as you listen to this, to jot them down in your notes and leave them in a comment if you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, and let us know. But also shoot them over to not me, send them to Vicki. Flood Vicki and her email.
Oh, wait a minute.
No,
Hey,
no.
You know, Tony, to your point, the most exciting part about a treasure hunt is being the one who finds the treasure, right? So we
Yeah.
don't want to rob our listeners of that. We want you guys to be the ones finding the treasure. So think of this conversation as we're giving you a shovel, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to do the digging. You're going to connect dots. You're going to find stuff. It's not that we're withholding stuff from you. It's that this rabbit hole goes deep. And so we're obviously not going to cover all of it today. But if you jot down some names and some dates and some company names and things, and you go down this rabbit hole, you're going to find some treasure.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a huge treasure trove, and what we're about to talk about is it's going to sound sci-fi, but it's not. It's absolutely happening today and very, very much real. I have I was trying to look for it in my notes, and now, of course, I can't find it. My messy notes, but it's this conversation. We're going to be diving into. very specific types of technology, and also organizations such as Silicon Valley, how they're planning on using this technology. It's AI driven, it's technology driven, and it's hacking the biological body in a way that you lose your privacy. You're going to. My goal at the end of this conversation is for people to understand that with what's happening, you're going to be faced with the possibility of losing your privacy and even your thoughts. In fact, I have it here. Here's the sentence. I was looking for it here. Today, this is my official opening, okay? If I had time to memorize it, I would have. Today, we are diving into the future of consciousness, how technology is reaching into your dreams, hacking your minds, and forcing us to fight for the last frontier of human freedom, our own thoughts. All right.
Oh,
so
yeah.
With that said, Vicki, how shall we proceed? I think the best way to go about this is to go with a lighter overview of setting the stage. I'm not sure if I had did that enough already, but if you have any thoughts on the direction we're going, now's the time.
Yeah, I'm just going to clarify for people because we've been talking about privacy for 10, 20 years now. And when we think of privacy, we think of like putting Norton on our computer or something. Like we look at it in terms of some three-letter agency is reading our text messages, or, they're looking at what we're shopping online, and that they're hacking our data, right? And what we're talking about is they have found a whole new minefield, and it is your conscience. They are now mining human conscience. And so they're not just mining, okay, let's try to foretell what this person wants to purchase or what this person wants to consume online. They are capturing neural data points such as our emotions, our personality, our motives, our intent. This is where the cognitive dissonance is going to kick in, Tony, because people are going to go, well, that's just Minority Report and that's just a movie.
Yeah.
And you have to realize in some cases, which came first, the chicken or the egg? What happens is the movies come first to get us uncomfortable with these very uncomfortable thoughts. And then 20, 30 years later, the actual tech gets rolled out. And so we are, Tony, on the precipice of Minority Report like a Minority Report like world.
So let's attack that right now, and just make it abundantly clear to people. Do not turn this off thinking that this is just going to be fantasy. This is, and with what you were saying, Vicki, this idea of what came first, one could literally argue that and we might even set this argument up during this conversation today, that these ideas, like for Minority Report, that you suggested came first, then the tech, where'd the idea come from? Are these people using, maybe back then they didn't have access to tech like the directors and stuff, but there's the same concept when it comes to psychedelics, meditations on how to access other realms to gain information that you bring here to utilize for your own benefit and gain. And so I think there's a real possibility with that. And other movies such as The Matrix is another one, down to more current times we talk about a lot on the show, Stranger Things. These are movies and TV shows that are hits, and they're absolutely amazing for their time, groundbreaking, but they are rooted in very deep and dark realities and truths. And so, and it's unfortunate that we've always find ourselves in the timeline of seeing the film, the movie, and then exposing the information. If we could find ourselves in the timeline where we are exposing the information and sharing what is real and possible, and then the movies follow, it might do something different to the overall psychological aspects for people. And maybe that's what this conversation does today. Because I mean, I know there's definitely movies out there and such, but what we talk about today with Halo and all these things, we might be able to get ahead of this and actually be able to be a reference point for people as they view media and TV shows.
Amen. Tony, we have to stop thinking or defining movies as entertainment, and we need to we need a new compartment in our brains. It's soft disclosure. It's not fiction. I mean, yeah, obviously there's fictional elements. They're characterizing this stuff, right? But we have to start switching our minds where we are in 2025, that our movies are not entertainment, they are soft disclosure.
Yes. So when it comes to Silicon Valley, what are you where do you want to go with this? What do you know? What's the information you know about when it comes to them and their involvement in this kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tony, let's start. We are diving straight into the deep end here.
Yeah.
This is great. So, there was a Joe Rogan Experience podcast on somewhat recently. I believe it's episode 2288 for people who are interested. And it was an interview with Jacques Vallée, Valle. And he is a pioneer in the UAP world. And in fact, a large majority of this very lengthy podcast, he is talking about UAPs. The stuff that we're going to be talking about today probably constitutes about 5 minutes, give or take, of what he actually talked about. I had to really pick these nuggets out. But anyway, Jacques Vallée had a experience where unsolicited, he was not, according to his story, he was not looking for this. One night he had a sleep paralysis / out of body type experience when he went to bed. And interestingly, instead of a angelic being all shrouded in white light, or the shadow man or the demon or the red-eyed alien or whatever, he saw he calls it a being, but he said that the being was a large black rectangle. And you do often hear people, I shouldn't say often, you do occasionally hear people talking about sacred geometry showing up in sleep paralysis visions, like Fibonacci's, like sequences and things like that. Um, Joe Rogan interrupted him at that point, and he said, "It sounds like the monolith from 2001." So anyway, he had this experience. So he went around, being a scientist. He went around and started asking a bunch of his Silicon Valley colleagues, "What do you make of this? Has this ever happened to you?" Now, this is where Federico Fagan comes into play. This is one of his colleagues, one of his friends. Now, for those of you not familiar with Federico rather Fagan, he was an Italian-American physicist, engineer, inventor, entrepreneur. He was a Silicon Valley tech giant, and he was actually dubbed father of the integrated circuit. So he's one of about 3 individuals who is credited with inventing the integrated circuit. His curriculum vitae is absolutely amazing. He is credited with either designing or creating or running the team that came up with the first commercial microprocessor, the Intel 4004. It goes on and on and on. And he worked for every CEO for every company you can think of. I mean, he just ruled Silicon Valley. Uh, Interestingly, Jacques Vallée says, and this is also on the Rogan podcast for those interested. I'm going to read a quote. This is directly from Jacques Vallée. He said, "There's a scientist I know well in Silicon Valley who also started a number of companies that are publicly traded now, who invented the integrated circuit. His name is Federico Fagan. He's a physicist from Italy with a PhD from Italy. He came to Silicon Valley in the very early days of the transistor. He worked with the initial teams in those places. There was a problem with how can you pack these things smaller and smaller and smaller, right? He's now recognized as the father or one of the two or three people who invented the integrated circuit. For a long time, he was celebrated in that capacity." I'm going to discontinue the quote for one moment. Uh, Fagan has a massive shelf of awards. And I mean, he's piled up more awards than Michael Jackson has Grammys, right? All of these things. And he received one year, I think, in 2009, the most highly esteemed, prestigious award given in the United States for people with technological innovation, right? So he got up on a stage and received an award for being the mind behind all of this process. Um, Intel, the integrated circuit, all this stuff. So I'm going to continue now the quote. This is Jacques Vallée talking about Federico Fagan. What he didn't say, and the he is Fagan, what he didn't say is that he had seen the design. This is for the integrated circuits. He had seen the design outside of his body one night, and that he had had multiple experiences outside of his body. Now, this is someone, one of the fathers of Silicon Valley. I mean, I recognize him as one of my mentors in venture capital and high technology investment. But there are a number of people like that whose names are in the Wall Street Journal or in the New York Times who've achieved something, but you find out that they also had and experimented with systematically the ability to go outside of their body. At this point in the interview, Rogan interrupts Vallée and finishes his sentence by saying, "And they acquire this information from some other source or some kind of vision." And so the reason I pointed out all of the awards and the accolades for achievement is, in many cases, these men in Silicon Valley, for all of the great things that they achieved, they're receiving awards for things that they saw in a vision. This would be like Moses taking credit for the design and the blueprint of the tabernacle, right? It's the same thing, but it's in reverse.
Wow.
Moses was given a vision of the tabernacle. He copied it. I don't know about you, Tony, but if I went to school and I copied off of someone's homework the whole time, I shouldn't be on the honor roll.
Yeah. I agree. I absolutely agree. This stuff is coming from the other side, essentially. And if it's coming from the other side, if you're new here, I don't know what to tell you on this conversation. Good luck. I guess maybe if I can give you a crash course, it would be we believe the upside down is real. It's probably the second heaven, and these entities are interacting with us, coming back and forth. And sometimes they take us there, and sometimes we find ourselves accidentally there. Good luck with the rest of this conversation. So if they're going, excuse me, if they're going to another place, out of body experience, astral projection, they're receiving this technology, this information from another source. Is it safe to say that this is Watcher technology then? If what they're doing is pulling this information, first of all, maybe it's not. Well, maybe it is Watcher technology, but are we talking about a good Watcher versus bad Watcher? And so it's easy for me to kind of go into the dark side of it right away. That's just how my brain works. I mean, anybody who's listened to the show long enough knows I'm very much a dystopian futurist. But and basically, let me define that term real quick for you. I think the future looks bleak, and I try to see it coming before it comes, knowing there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm here just to sound the alarm and tell stories, friends. But I mean, are we talking about technology that's being given to mankind from a watcher, fallen angel type source?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that that's what's happening. And the reason I'm saying that so emphatically, Tony, because what do I don't know all of the mysteries of heaven and what's going on behind the veil. But the reason I'm talking about that is um, we know by something's fruit what kind of tree it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it would be one thing, and we do see shades of this. We do see technology being used to, prolong people's life. We see a lot of technology in hospitals and things like that. But ultimately, when this plays out, what is going to be the ultimate fruit of all of this technology? It's not going to it's not going to just be about us having, you know, hey, I can make dinner in 10 minutes now instead of spending all day cooking like back in the old days. Or it's not going to be about entertainment. It's not all about video games and health resources. It's ultimately what it's leading up to. While we're distracted with all the fun aspects of it, what they're doing is they're building an infrastructure for a new order of things, right? And so, what is all this technology doing? Where you can locate anyone on the planet anywhere at any time, where you can hack into their house, their computer, their mind. They're building an infrastructure so that a world leader who is not omnipotent, is not omniscient, it's giving godlike qualities to someone that doesn't have them. It's an infrastructure. All this global positioning and the mind hacking and reading your mind and knowing where you are. It's the omnipresence of God. It's the omnipotence of God, which is the all powerfulness of God. It's the omniscience of God, the all knowing of God. This new order is going to be run by a king or a principality who does not have any of those qualities. And the tech that is emerging is tech that is going to give a pseudo godlike appearance to this leader. But what's fascinating is all it's going to take is an EMP or that plug coming out of the wall, and they will lose all of their power. And that's why it's interesting where it says in scripture that Jesus is going to come back and destroy him with the brightness of his coming. And you can look at that like Jesus is light, and I'm shielding my eyes. He's so bright, he's holy. Yeah, that's true. But I'm wondering if Jesus's return is going to be more like one of these EMP events that's actually going to short circuit the entire motherboard of this Antichrist infrastructure.
Well, I just on that alone, I mean, when's the last time Jesus re-entered this realm of existence? It was when he resurrected, and right now, a very hot topic is the Shroud of Turin. And they say, how did the Shroud of Turin even come to exist? It had to have a very proper amount of light to it, but there was an extreme burst of light that literally acts as an X-ray and imprinted the man's face on the shroud. And how is that possible? It was a burial shroud. And so the idea that Jesus is coming back in this burst of light, it may be that's his MO. He's like, yeah, when I come back to this realm, I let you know by a burst of light. Even when it comes to science saying how at the moment of conception, there's a burst of light when the sperm hits the egg. Now we know that biologically didn't happen with Christ and Mary's pregnancy, but was there's a holy burst of light inside her womb? Is there this burst of light idea? Is this translatable to the return? And so that's a rabbit hole for sure to go down. But when it comes to this godlike characteristics that you're talking about, are you referring to? In my mind, it could be human beings. It could be other entities from other realms portraying themselves as godlike beings here, or we could even go down the road of Antichrist. Are we talking about the Antichrist? So when you're saying that, what are you picturing in your mind?
Yeah. Ultimately, the master puppeteer will be this Antichrist. But he has loads and loads of thralls and minions doing his bidding because he needs uh, millions of people to help him with this. So
Mm-hmm.
it will be everything from elite compartmentalized up here people who know exactly what they're doing and who they're doing it for. It will be other fallen beings, and it will also be millions and millions of human beings who are beguiled and duped into it unwittingly, but who, whether they realize it or not, are entering into they're entering in through agreement to all of this stuff. And what I mean by that, let me tell you what it looks like today, but it's going to get more and more serious. And we know this from
I, ha-
Revelation.
I have an example of that. So go ahead. But I just want you to remind me to bring my example to the table of
Okay.
that.
Okay. So we know that where this is eventually leading is if you don't have this mark, you can't buy or sell, you can't get food, you can't do anything. But what this looks like today is what they're doing is very, very clever, Tony. They're offering us all sorts of tech that's just fun and convenient. And they absolutely understand the herd mentality and the psychology of humanity, that if every single one of my friends has an iPhone 16 and they can do AI emojis and I've got an iPhone 10 and I can't do it, and they're all sitting around having so much fun and they're doing Bluetooth games and I'm left out, like we as human beings, we don't like to be left out. We like to fit in. And this is why there's so much in scripture about standing alone. I love Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Esther and Daniel, these people that were like, I don't need Babylon's approval, you know? So what they're doing now is they're giving us unimportant tech, just stuff that's fun and games and Angry Birds and all this silly stuff, right? But you can't have any of this tech unless you sign a contract. In other words, you scroll through a whole bunch of screens of fine print that you don't read, and then you hit, and anybody who's familiar with my work, I talk a lot about agreements, permissions, invitations, covenants, threshold agreements, et cetera, et cetera. You're hitting a button that says, I agree. You've just given permission and you
Mm.
don't even know what you've given permission for. So we are so used to clicking I agree with no consequences, because for 10 plus years now, every time we load something on our computer, well, I have to have this PDF reader for my job and I have to have this, we're so used to hitting I agree with no consequences that if we just keep barreling forward, agreeing to everything that we download or that we want to interact with, eventually that fine print is going to leap off the screen and it's going to bite us in the butt. And
Mm.
so we have to start making decisions about what we or who we give permission to.
Yeah. Well, I 100% agree with you. We we often live our lives like So what you were saying earlier, but you didn't say exactly this. You talk a lot about the dream realm and the dreamscape and the contracts that are signed within, and we live our lives like that's our recess from reality. We live our lives like, you know, we're physically tired, so we physically go to sleep, and the dream realm is meaningless. It doesn't have any consequences. It's just a place to run wild. Many people have no control over it, and so, you know, if you know, and speaking from a secular term, if you have a dream where, you know, you got to cheat on your spouse, man, that was a wild ride. I hope I can have that again tomorrow, you know, or something like that. You know, like the desires of the flesh come through in the dream realm, and you think it's harmless because it was just a dream, is what we've always been taught. In the reality, there is no off button for your life. You will go through life in this realm, this reality, this waking world. And then when you lay your head down, you're now entering in a whole new realm of existence where your physical body gets to rest, but your mind goes another direction. And there's a whole other attack that comes upon you that is spiritual. So there is that reality. Now, I want to bring up this example because you mentioned about the Antichrist having its minions. Now, I don't want to say, I want to get this out of the way so people don't say, you said, I'm not saying that I came under an attack of the Antichrist's minions, but I did come under attack of a minion that was controlled by a demonic entity or an ancient god. I'm not exactly sure which, maybe both. But I will just say this in short. I've mentioned it before on the show, but I don't know if it was a member show or a public show. This past year, when I released the Dark Shift episode, the night before, it was Monday night. As soon as Jack hit export on his computer, he was here at the office working late on that show. The moment he hit his button on his mouse, he got an email to his work email, which, you know, is not public. We've never advertised it anywhere. And so right there, you know, I don't want to say it's rocket science to figure out, but the fact that if somebody's phishing and they don't know for sure, they would probably send it to multiple email addresses to get it out there, to get it to us, right? We have several that are public, and we have lots of emails. It only comes to his, and it's this mixed up mess of an email. It seemed like it was weird. It was weird the way it was written. But it mentioned the exact entity and how you spell it by name in it. And it wasn't until I was interviewing a guy who's gone through similar things and is now a Christian, when I brought it up to him, he said to me that he asked me some questions on how I handled it. One of them being, did you read that out loud? And I was like, yeah, I read it several times out loud, trying to understand it. He said, that was a spell. And he said somebody was sent or told to send that to you, and it was a spell. And as you chanted that spell out loud, you opened up a whole world of mess. And he's right. That entire week was wild. Like I didn't come on the show the next week and say, guys, what's going on here? Because I tend to live a pretty private life. And I don't know, you know, I think people sometimes think that it's roses over here. It's not. I just don't advertise it. But that following week was just bonkers. And I'd say the following weeks was bonkers. The spiritual attack that ensued. But it didn't last. And we attacked it in spiritual warfare. And we went on the offensive with it. Which means I didn't go to the astral realm. I didn't go to the second heaven to fight with a Nephilim blaster. Unfortunately, that would be really cool. But I did approached this, and many people around me approached it as a spiritual warfare attack on me. And how do you fight with spiritual warfare? You fight it with spiritual warfare. And I'll seed this now so people can look forward to it. In July, you and I and Dr. Laura Sanger are scheduled to record together on this very thing of tactics of spiritual warfare, and how can one, what does it look like to engage in spiritual warfare? It's a question that comes up at times, and I thought no better than you and her to come on with me and talk about this. And so I'll leave it all there, but I will say this. When it comes to the minion idea, that's very real. Whether it's the Antichrist, a leader of a satanic coven, or an entity in another realm that has signed agreements with people who are willingly going into work for that entity. That does happen. Episode 692 and 693 are proof of that. And so the minion idea, I just wanted to lay out that as an example, because I directly had experience with that. All right, let's take a second to talk about our sponsor break, which is Ghost Bed. Sleep so good, it's scary. And when it comes to the summertime, few things are more terrifying than waking up drenched in sweat, sheets twisted like you've just wrestled a shadow person in your dreams. But Ghost Bed has your back, literally, with patented cooling technology that helps you sleep up to 5 times cooler than your entry-level model. Ghost Bed has been engineering better sleep for over 20 years. They're family-owned, backed by more than 60,000 5-star reviews, and every mattress is made in the US and Canada using premium, long-lasting materials. Not sure which mattress is right for you? Head to ghostbed.com/Tony and take their quick sleep quiz to match with your perfect fit, whether it's the Comfort, Signature, or Luxe. Right now, GhostBed is giving the Confessionals listeners an extra 10% off. Just go to ghostbed.com/Tony and use code Tony at the checkout. That's ghostbed.com/Tony, promo code Tony for an extra 10% off. Sleep cooler, sleep better all summer long.
Yeah, amen, Tony. And whenever an entity or his motive, his agenda is exposed, it's very interesting. And, I can tell you that I've done hundreds of these podcasts, Tony, and every time I'm asked the question, and we're talking about sleep paralysis in the astral realm and why are people getting pulled up into the astral realm? As soon as the question gets asked, but why? What's their motive? What's their agenda? That is the point where 90% of the time my tech will go out. Now, if we are following Occam's razor, maybe Vicki just has really cheap equipment, and that's possible, right? But the timing of it is uncanny. I did 2 conferences recently. I did one at the end of March and one at the beginning of April. And both times when I got to the place in my talk where I was exposing the agenda of these astral entities, 2 different conferences, 2 different states, 2 different sets of equipment. Both times, right at that point in my talk, my mic cut out, and everyone who was live streaming the conferences couldn't hear what I said at that point. So there's things like that you have to put together, like kind of like with the email that came through. If my tech is going out all the time, I maybe need to look at my tech and think like maybe I should upgrade and get better equipment. But if my tech is fine for days and days, and it always and only goes out every time that one question is asked, you have to start questioning the interference that's coming through. And well, who look, I'm not dangerous. The 3-letter agencies and the men in black, they're not going to come to my door. I'm not a threat, right? So you have to wonder what's behind this. And they don't want some of this stuff getting out there. And Tony, what's really interesting to me is They understand. Here we're using that word they again, right? Everyone involved in this, satanic matrix, right? To coin the Operation Red Pill guys. This satanic matrix. Everyone involved, they must know the power of truth, and they must know the power of the Spirit of God to ride upon truth, to influence and transform the mind. The ability for, like, let's use the modern vernacular, an ability for a human being to be red pilled. That's actually a really difficult thing to do, Tony. The older we get and the more set in our ways we get, we will instantly cut someone off in our head when they start saying something that is
Yeah.
contrary to what our worldview is. The powers that be must understand the unstoppable force that truth is to change and transform someone's mind, because they would not be on such a quest to shut the mouths of and stifle and ruin the tech of the people speaking the truth unless they knew the absolute power that was behind those words. It's not the power behind the person speaking the words. We're spitting out what we are seeing in the scriptures, but it really, if we were to use logic as a human race, the fact that so much energy is being directed right now with shadow banning and canceling and deleting accounts of people speaking the truth gives away the fact that they know how much transformational power is in truth. Because if even a small percentage of the population grasped the truth, their kingdom would be overthrown.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you think, like, even when it comes to the idea that, okay, so these things are manipulating um our tech. How? Well, if it is their tech that they gave to us, then it's not even that far fetched to say anytime they want to manipulate it, they can. And what does that mean when it comes to AI technology? Did they give us the ability? Did they give us the ability to create AI? Meaning, could they actually infiltrate and use AI in the future? Dystopian futurist here. What do you think my answer is on that? Also the idea that well, I think, yeah, it's gone. I had a thought to pair with that, and it's gone now. What was I talking about?
They
So the
hacked your brain,
tech is
Tony.
there.
They
Oh
hacked
yeah.
your
So
brain.
I'll just say this. So that if the tech is theirs and you have experiences where every time you're saying something, they did hack my brain, by the way. And every time that you have these experiences where you're saying something and it's repeatable, it's almost like an experience, or an experiment where, it's like, okay, I'm gearing up to say this, and 3, 2, 1, and yep, it's dead. And
Yes.
it's that idea. We have that on the show too with certain things. And for us over here, it's migrational, where it's like, when we hit a new tier of conversation where we're revealing something and you start doing that more and more, you see the tech issues, and then that tends to smooth out, and it's almost like whatever's beyond the veil accepts that this is where it continually goes. And then when we level up the conversation to another thing that's going even deeper, we start seeing the same thing happen. And then it subsides. And then it's like as we turn pages, the technology interrupts. And it's been an interesting thing to see. I imagine a lot of that gets edited out in post production. I'm sure there's times that it doesn't. Probably when I tell Jack in the notes to not take it out. But I know it's happened several times towards the end of last year and this year. But when it comes to this idea and these technologies and coming from other realms, the people on this side of things that are operating, whether it's going to lucid dreams, to receive technology, or astral projecting, out of body experiences, communicating with entities to retrieve information to build this technology. Once we have this technology built here, and let's start migrating into what technology are we talking about. Is it possible, and I'll let you answer this with a yes, no, or in-depth, but we're going to start transitioning from theory to what do we have now today? What are they using today? And specifically speaking of Halo, and anything else you want to talk about. But we're going to reach a point, if we have not already, where they're able to hack our dreams and literally steal ideas out of our dreams or implant ideas into our dreams. And there's a whole dystopian reality that comes with that. But this is not Minority Report. This is not The Matrix. This is not Stranger Things. This is reality happening right now. And I can prove it. So before I prove it, though, go ahead, Vicki. What say you?
Absolutely. We're going to start by defining some terms, but I do kind of want to put a punctuation mark, Tony, on what you were just saying about the kind of leveling up and the spirit realm sort of getting used to their secrets being disclosed. Um, Kind of interesting, Tony. If people are into the Book of Enoch, uh, the Watchers were punished for disclosing secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And, for someone who is known for disclosing secrets, it's kind of ironic that the thing that makes them throw a temper tantrum is when someone discloses their secrets, right? But what we have there when we're revealing secrets is
Hold on. Rewind. Hold that thought, but I need clarification now. Are you saying, and I'm not recalling this in the Book of Enoch, so if this is what you're saying, then I don't remember it at all.
Yeah.
You're saying that the Watchers were punished by other Watchers for revealing their own.
No. So Azazel specifically, his punishment, if you read that portion, he is not specifically being punished for procreating with women or whatnot. He is punished specifically for sharing the mysteries of heaven with man, weapons of
Gotcha.
warfare and the root cutting and all of that. And so what's interesting to me, the irony, the hypocrisy is that this race of fallen watchers who were basically guilty of sharing secrets that mankind shouldn't know. They're the ones getting their knickers in a twist every time we share their secrets.
Gotcha.
And it's just bizarre. It's not bizarre to me because it almost shows,
It's process of revelation, Vicki. Like, so they do this, and over time, people like you and myself and countless other people out there on the same level of thinking as us, and I don't say level as we're higher level than anybody else, but just we're different. Once very different, but once we start connecting dots, because what they've done is they've tried to divorce mankind from understanding how real their supernatural spiritual existence is right now. And so as we reveal the realities to everybody, how the supernatural realm is real, your spiritual existence is real, whether you're atheistic or not, you still have one. As we reveal these things and reveal the truth of what they have done, that's when they're getting upset.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just to wrap this point up before we go into the definition of terms, this is a cosmic tortoise and the hare. So we're the tortoise, humanity, people created in the image of God. We're the slow, dopey, stupid, deplorable, slow pokes, right? And the hare is these second heaven entities with higher understanding and knowledge than us. So where they're getting beaten at their own game is they're going into this game presumptuously. Humans are stupid. All they want to do is drink beer and get drunk and have sex and play video games. And, you know, they spend all day long thinking, what am I going to stuff in what hole in my body? That's basically what most people, their whole life is just, I got a bunch of holes in my body and I want to stuff stuff in it. Like that's kind of humanity, depraved humanity. But here's the deal. The what they're not accounting for in their equation is, some human beings, if they have the Spirit of God on them, the Holy Spirit can reveal things to us that are beyond our knowledge or our understanding. And He can give us those words in a moment, or through hours and hours of research, or through life experience, or through suffering, or through sorrow, or through mentoring and loving and serving other people. And so, what they're not accounting for is, yes, it's a totally uneven match if it's just Vicki Joy in her frail human body with her limited knowledge against a entity in the second heaven. But the ace up my sleeve is that if the Spirit of God is contending for me, I'm going to come to that war with weapons that they don't expect a human being to have. And that's why I think that we're staying evenly matched and at times ahead of the game, and why we've gotten as into thousands and thousands and thousands of years of existence without being obliterated. Now, part of that is because God foreordained before the beginning of time the end. And the end isn't going to happen when the elite people of the world choose it. And I think that's why we keep having this moving goalpost, because the elites have all their ducks in a row, just like Nimrod had all his ducks in a row. Fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter if you've got everything lined up, and it doesn't matter if you've got your red heifer and all your tools ready to go to build the temple. It doesn't matter what you have. All God has to do is look down and say, like, hey, let's put a stop to this. And so, um, without getting too lost in the weeds here, Tony, because I do want to get back onto the question you actually asked me, but I just wanted to let everybody know that, everybody out there who is trying to get the truth out, whether you are a public or a private figure, we just have to keep plowing forward, Tony, because it looks like we're not getting through to people, uh, but we really are.
Yeah.
People out there are hungering for truth, and they're hungering to make sense of this mess. And I have the utmost of faith in the younger generations. I'm not one of these old people that, oh, those kids. I am in communication with several Gen Zers. I love them. They are so knowledgeable. They are smart. They are spiritual. And we, I just can't say enough that, there is always going to be someone to pass this torch to until Jesus comes back. And older people, if you're Gen X or you're a baby boomer, quit knocking the younger
Hmm.
people. They are creating this. I'm going off on a tangent, Tony. I'm very
No, you're
passionate
fine.
about this. I am so sick of them polarizing everyone into every group possible,
Yeah.
skin color and gender. And now we got to sit and fight and wear t-shirts, but what generation? Like, I had no control over when I was born, Tony. My
Hmm.
parents got together. It happens, like it's just, it is what it is. We're all a part of a human race. And why this is important, Tony, where we're going now with the neural rights, there's going to be a point in the very near future where, if the human race does not collectively bond together to fight this war, it's going to be a slaughter. We have to
Absolutely.
bond together. I don't care what color you are, how old you are, what gender you are, what religion. We are all human beings created in the image of God, and our identity is under attack.
I 100% agree with you. And before we get to the neuro rights, we have to hit on Halo, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
technology
yeah.
side of it. But just to bounce off of what you just said, and how you feel about that, there is an overviewing precedent, I would say, uh, biblically speaking, for what you're saying. And I'm sure there's plenty of examples, but what pops out to me is, and I believe it's Second Timothy. It must be. The whole book of Second Timothy is Paul passing the torch, and it's basically saying that the time is now yours. Take this baton and run this race as far and fast as possible, as strong as possible, because my time is coming to a close. But now it's your time, young man, to continue this race. And so when it comes to like this, it's the same thing. There's Gen Z. Guess what? After Gen Z, there's going to be another gen. And every new generation that comes along, there needs to be the older generation that is not suppressing them with how stupid they are, but rather we're here together now. Learn from me. Prepare yourself, because there's going to come a time where I'm going to hand you this baton that I'm carrying, and I'm going to rely on you to continue carrying this until time is done. And so I think there is a definite biblical precedent for that. But let's get back on track.
Okay.
So talk to me about headbands and Halo Headbands. What is this all about? Because this is going to lay the groundwork for why the neural rights conversation even should exist.
Yep, absolutely. So there is a product. It's in a prototype state right now. It's called the Halo Lucid Dreaming Headband. It's going to be priced somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. So it's not like all your kids are going to run out and buy one. But the interestingly, Tony, the initial prototype that was rolled out prior to the Halo, which is the current model, was called the Morpheus. Makes total sense, right? Morpheus, the god of dreams. But what a lot of people don't realize, our brains automatically go to God of Dreams when we hear Morpheus, or it automatically goes to the Matrix, because Morpheus, who was acting as the God of Dreams in that movie. But here, cultural and folklore aside, if you actually break down the Greek word Morpheus, what do we have in the root? Morph. So Morpheus doesn't mean dreams or subconscious. Morph means to form or shape. And so why is the god of dreams named Morpheus? Now, it's really interesting because in my book, They Only Come Out at Night, which is about sleep paralysis, if I had to boil down the thesis of that book into one word, it's transformation. And I even I think chapter 3 is called Transformation and the Theory of Theosophy. And I'm talking about how these dream experiences, these paranormal experiences, the lucid dreams, the astral projection, all of these things, the intent of this is transformation. And I have got a really great quote. I don't know if I can find it right away. If I can't, I will just move on. But here we go. So Clive Barker, most people will know him as the filmmaker behind the Hellraiser franchise. Clive Barker wrote, probably back in the 90s, he said, confrontation with the very dark or the very bright should be about what you do tomorrow. What does that do to your life thereafter? I don't believe that these people who have had their paranormal experience and do nothing with this information except to go on the Phil Donahue show and say that they've seen them. These people aren't transformed. So here we've got a horror film writer saying that the purpose of these paranormal experiences is transformation, which is the very same essence of Morpheus. It is to form or to shape. Let's use a modern word. Brainwash, hack the brain. So anyway, I want to lay that as a foundation. So this Halo lucid dreaming headband, this is an actual piece of equipment you put on your head and go to bed with. The company who is creating this device is called Prophetic.
Oh my gosh. Perfect.
Nothing here to see, folks. Nothing here to see.
Oh,
So,
man.
now you would think that the designers, the creators of this would like, why are they inventing this? Well, for the same reason we've got the Apple, VR goggles, and it's for entertainment, it's for fun, it's so kids can reality shift and be Harry Potter and Spider-Man at night, right? Like it should be marketed as an entertainment piece, right? It, the lucid dreaming. And let me just backtrack for a moment here. The headband doesn't make you lucid dream. This is what it does. And this is total layman's terms, people. So forgive me. I'm not a techie. Basically, what the headband does is it's tracking certain pulses in your brain and heart rate and whatnot, and it recognizes when you go lucid naturally. So what it's doing is when it detects that you've gone lucid, it prolongs that period of lucidity so that you stay lucid longer. So it doesn't induce a lucid dream. It will just prolong what your body is physiologically already doing, if that makes sense.
So it's basically leaving the back door open longer for things to mess with you.
Correct. Absolutely. So now back
Perfect.
to this idea that this piece is not being marketed as an entertainment piece, like, hey, this will be fun. This is where noetic sovereignty comes into play. And Tony, I'm not just throwing out fancy words to sound smart. You got to understand. Listeners, you have to understand what this means, and I'll break it
So
down for you.
and before we go to noetic sovereignty, I want to give you another backup here because
Okay.
you bring Halo to the table, and you and I were talking beforehand about another company doing similar things.
Mhm.
And it's like people will give you a hard time. I'm sure they try to give me a hard time, but guys, it falls on deaf ears. Like I don't read the comments, and I have several people reading my emails. So like,
I'm
keep them
so
coming. I
jealous.
guess I live in a very I live in a world where when I have a conversation, it gets shipped out to the world, and I assume everybody loved it because I loved it, and I don't know if you hated it or not. So thanks for the commenting and driving the algorithm for us. That's great. That said, there is a man named Michael Raduga. I think you pronounce the last name. I think he's Russian because the company started in Russia. I came across this guy months and months ago, and I followed him because I was like, I got to get this guy on the show. He probably isn't going to like what I had to say. He didn't answer me, and it is what it is. I really don't need him on the show, to be honest with you. But his company is called REMspace, REMspace, and it is now located in California, but originated in Russia. And REMspace is a neurotechnology startup specialized in lucid dreaming and REM sleep technologies. The company develops innovative tools like Lucid Me, Smart Sleep Mask, and app. And it is an app available on the App Store. I've downloaded it just before you and I connected today, which aid in inducing lucid dreams. So this is aiding in inducing lucid dreams, not prolonging, inducing lucid dreams, improving sleep quality, and facilitating dream journaling. So we talk about dream journaling on the show. Fringe is a great friend of the show, and she talks about dream journaling. And through her quote unquote dream journaling is when she started going into discovery mode, that her dreams are not just dreams. These are things that are actually happening to her where she thought they were dreams. They're not dreams. They're actually happening. So that's what REMspace Inc. is about. Now, in 2024, there's a huge breakthrough. But before I go into that, the company started by Michael in 2007. It began because he had an interest in lucid dreaming that began when he was 16 after experiencing sleep paralysis and lucid dreaming himself. So he started REMspace in 2007. So this is somebody who his root cause, his root interest is not like, for instance, like me, where I would hear somebody let's talk about sleep paralysis. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me look into that. I've never experienced that. Versus somebody like Vicki, who's like, oh, I'm interested in sleep paralysis because I'm dealing with this and I'm kind of frustrated, and I have never talked to the man, so I don't know what his motivations are and how he views these things, but his whole root interest comes from his own personal experiences with sleep paralysis and lucid dreaming. And in 2004, REMspace achieved a significant milestone by facilitating two-way communication between individuals during lucid dreams. So let me just pause there for a second and specifically say to everybody, this means that they found a way to have two people in lucid dreams communicating with each other, kind of like Inception. Communicating between individuals during lucid dreams using specialized equipment to transmit and receive messages in real time. The breakthrough suggests potential applications in mental health therapy, skill training, and immersive virtual experiences. And I might add digital possession. I don't know. So, but like REMspace as a company is in the same vein as Halo and Prophetic. I guess Prophetic is the company and Halo, aka Morpheus, is the technology. I don't know what the technology is I'm sure they have a name for their technology, but this company REMspace has had a very significant breakthrough in this, where they're actually inducing lucid dreams. So they can induce a lucid dream. So say they have two people laying on a bed in a laboratory, they can get both people, induce them into a lucid dream. So now you're in a lucid dream. And once you're in the lucid dream, we can send messages into the dream for you, to you. And we can also have you two communicate in the lucid dream together. So like this goes to the dystopian side, to the corporate side, where with this kind of technology, corporations can throw advertising into your dream. They pay a hefty fee, but you hook up to the Halo, you hook up to the REMspace technology, and you're using it for your own reasons and benefits. Well, corporations are going to capitalize on that. They'll throw advertising in your way. You wake up and all of a sudden you have these desires you didn't go to bed with, and you wind up buying things, or on a sinister approach, you wake up and all of a sudden for the first time in 15, 20 years, you find yourself looking at pornography again. And it's like, it's all this stuff that can be induced during the lucid dream state. And literally, quite literally induced. Before we go any further, because I'm sure you might have comments on what I just said, before you go on to those comments, or maybe after, it doesn't matter to me, but we should define what lucid dreaming is. And I think you're probably more qualified to do that than I am. I have my woo-woo way of looking at it, but I don't know.
Yeah. So interesting. And I'm going to bake this into my definition. What you were reading there about the REMspace Inc., where it says that this lucid dreaming device is going to improve your quality of sleep. That's one of the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
That's pure stark baloney. And I'll tell you why. When we are in a normal, regular, healthy dream state, the type that God designed us physiologically to experience, the reason we wake up feeling rested is that the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex part of our brain, and that's the part that does all of the higher functioning, the thinking, the reasoning, the processing of our stress, the decision making, the evaluating of long-term consequences of decision making, it goes to bed. It shuts down. That's literally, if you wanted to put a scientific definition to sleep, it's technically that your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is going down for the night. There's an on-off switch, and it's being flipped off. And that's why when you wake up, you're so refreshed because you didn't have to think all night, and so much of us were worn out by the end of the day because our lives are so busy and there's so many things to do and our to-do lists are huge and we're stressed out and we have jobs and bosses and relationships that are complicated. And by the grace of God, we have 5 to 8 hours a night where it shuts off and we can just rest, right? Lucid dreaming is when that switch flips on in an REM cycle. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is now on, and you have access to your conscious. You have access to your memories, your personality, your worldview. And when you are lucid dreaming, you're not resting. You might be asleep, but you're not resting. And anyone who has had lifelong sleep paralysis, because most of us lucid dream, and I'm going to go into something in a second there. Most people who have these experiences night after night after night, they wake up exhausted because they were asleep, but they weren't at rest. Their 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 higher brain functioning was not only on all night, but it was going hyperspeed because most of us are trying to figure out how to wake up and get away from these entities or these, you know, like the mall world that we all get stuck in and stuff like that. So here's where I think we have the lucid dreaming on its head. I believe, you know, when a Christian hears lucid dreaming, all the walls go up and we get triggered. That's new age, that's new age, that's new age. I can't hear you, I can't hear you, right? Here's the deal. Lucid dreaming, I believe, this is my theory. You can send me the hate mail. Lucid dreaming, I believe, was initially given to us as a gift of God because God understands that spiritual warfare is in high gear when we're asleep because we're the most vulnerable. Even First Peter talks about First Peter, I think chapter 5:7, 5:8. It compares Satan, our adversary, to a prowling lion. Well, when does a lion do all its hunting? At night. And so God knows that we are particularly vulnerable when we're asleep. And I believe that when we're in trouble, when we're interfacing with Ephesians 6:12 riffraff, these higher than demon entities, these archons and principalities and spiritual forces of darkness, et cetera, the ascended masters, the spirit guides, whatever, that our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex flips on so that we can wake up. We can get out of the dream. And what the new age and the people that don't understand the dangers of this stuff and the REM space inks and the prophetic AIs, what they don't understand is that lucid dreaming is a weapon to be used to protect our noetic sovereignty. And it's used to get out of the dream, not to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And Tony, this is what I hear all the time. What I hear all the time online is the way out of these demonic dreams that you're having is to go deeper into the astral realm. Like as if all the bad guys are on the bottom, and if you keep going, to higher and higher levels, they get really, really nice and loving and wonderful. Um, I don't believe that theory. I believe that if there are levels of the astral, that what's happening as you are ascending is you're going from wolves to wolves in sheep's clothing. The disguises get better, the costumes get better. And so this is the advice that's being given to people that are interfacing with the fallen realm. The advice online is go deeper and deeper. Dig yourself even deeper into the hole.
It gets better. Trust me. Just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going.
At first it hurts, but you just keep going. It gets better. I promise.
That's right. Hey, 5-year-old that takes 5 steps into the woods and gets scared, just keep walking deeper and deeper and deeper into the woods till you get lost. And it's such ridiculous advice. But anyway, so to get back to the point, Tony, lucid dreaming is when we all of a sudden in an REM state have access to our conscious brain again. And we have decision-making abilities. We have our morals and our ethics and our values and our worldview. We have our memories. We have an inner monologue. And it's there to protect us. It's not there for entertainment. It's not there for all of these other reasons. But interestingly, according to the creators of the Halo Headband, the reason they invented this device was to protect our noetic sovereignty. But what's interesting is they've stated a problem, and then they have created a solution to the problem, but they don't understand that their solution is part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're ready to get into noetic sovereignty, I can define that and we can go into how that pertains to the headband. But do you have anything you want to throw in there before I?
No, we can keep it moving here. We have probably about 15, 20 minutes before I have to wrap it because I got to take Lindsay to the doctor.
Yep.
But I will say this, and this just keeps popping out at me, and I do believe that this isn't like in perfect context for my context Nazis when it comes to the scripture. But I think it's the idea of it is something that is good. 2 Corinthians 10:5. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive to obey Christ. So against the knowledge of God. And we're definitely talking and diving into lucid dream state, the other side, and the operation that exists there to go and be raised against the knowledge of God, against human beings and mankind knowing God. There is a cosmic war for your soul. And the other side is very much raising up against the knowledge of God. And the last part of that is taking every thought captive. What we're dealing with is the idea of taking your thoughts captive here in this realm so that you can more easily be taking your thoughts captive when you are sleeping. Because it's very important to understand that when you're sleeping, there is activity happening. Listen, last night, I rarely remember my dreams, but last night I had a dream that I was outside with my chickens and they kept on going underneath this barbed wire fence into this other guy's property, and they would want to swim around in a little pond that's there. Like my chickens are going to swim around in a pond. And I just kept on walking them around the property lines, trying to teach them that this is the property line like you would with a dog. Don't go beyond this point. And then the guy came up asking me why I was on his property fishing his fish. I'm like, oh man, I didn't realize. And then we went back over to our property. It was cool. It was a weird dream, right? But I'm talking about very real lucid dreams that have consequences, not my fishes or my chickens swimming around like ducks. Take your thoughts captive is what I'm trying to say. So anyways, let's get into I keep wanting to say neuro rights. That's part of this, but there's another term let's get into it and move forward here.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up that verse 2, Tony, because I had 2 sort of summary verses for the end, and that was one of them. The other one being Romans 12:1-2, specifically verse 2, where we are told to renew our minds. And that plays directly into the noetic sovereignty. And I believe that Romans 12:2 is the ultimate solution. Prophetic AI with this Halo Headband is proposing one solution to maintaining our noetic sovereignty. And I think that Romans 12:2 is providing an alternative, if not better, in my opinion. But let me explain noetic sovereignty. It's very simple term. It's not as fancy as it sounds. Noetic is just of the mind, knowledge of the mind. Sovereignty means we have rights over the content of our brain. So what I think about, how I feel, my inner thoughts, my judgments, my worldview, that's mine. I'll share with you what I want to share, but there are memories and things that are sacred. I've got 40 years of memories of my mother who passed away. They're mine. They're precious because they're mine. I don't want them blasted all over the place. I don't need to share with everybody that kind of stuff. I think about Mary when she gave birth to Jesus. I love this verse. It's meaningful to me, and it has been meaningful to me for a good portion of my life. As she was witnessing the way that people were interacting with her newborn son, the wise men were coming and giving gifts, and the way that God provided a place for her to give birth, and everything surrounding the birth of Jesus. It said that Mary treasured these things in her heart. And we're not told much in scripture at all about Mary's human perspective of being the mother of Jesus. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Be
She
amazing.
had her noetic sovereignty. She got to treasure those things. And there have been so many things in my life. This is why I don't share a lot of my accomplishments, or when I get emails where people are saying, this changed my life and whatever. I don't share a lot of that stuff, not because I'm humble, not because I'm introverted, but because there's something really powerful about taking something that was meaningful to you and treasuring it in your heart. Because as soon as you tell someone else, it loses its polish. It I can't quite explain it, but there's things that belong to us that shouldn't be mined. So noetic sovereignty is how we must maintain control over our own minds. And I'm so glad that you brought up the Corinthians verse about taking every thought captive. And I think that if anyone leaves this podcast, if the only two things you remember is the verse that Tony read and the one from Romans 12:1 and 2, that's going to be your roadmap out of the woods. We have to constantly take our thoughts captive, and we have to renew our minds. These are the ways that we maintain a Faraday cage over our heads. Now, so let me just give you, this is the logic behind prophetic AI. This was the foundation that they built their Halo Headband upon. They went, okay, first of all, this is right from their homepage, Tony. So if you go to the prophetic AI website, which I think it's just prophetic.com, but from the very homepage, it says pursuing answers to the ultimate questions. Humanity has a rare opportunity to expand consciousness and reimagine the human experience. Prophetic is pioneering the way. That's the homepage that you're going to find when you go to their site. Now, the foundation that they built this idea upon was, there was a philosopher named Robert Nozick. And in 1974, he posed a thought experiment, which is no longer a thought experiment now. And it was very much kind of like Total Recall. Again, we keep bringing up these soft disclosure movies that have been showing us this all along. So Robert Nozick in 1974, this thought experiment um, was, what if there was some sort of theoretical neurostimulation device, and we could perfectly simulate every single imaginable experience, and we could feel it with all of the senses. We could vicariously enjoy a vacation on the beach in the middle of, a 10 below winter, or we could vicariously experience being married to our favorite handsome celebrity, or, fill in the blanks. So this is very similar to Total Recall. So the question that Nozick was attempting to answer in even coming up with that theoretical thought experiment was ba- basically it was an argument against ethical hedonism. So there's this philosophical idea, which I totally disagree with, that man will always pursue pleasure as the ultimate good, and anything that's not pleasurable will not improve a person's well-being. That's ethical hedonism. Well, I don't agree with that because scripture is completely contrary to that. We're told to sacrifice for other people, to put other people first. We're told about the benefits, the eternal benefits of suffering, trials, bearing our cross daily. And we know that there is both temporal and eternal fruit and rewards from making war with the flesh. That's the whole thing. Paul is beating himself, pummeling himself, trying to overcome his flesh. So this whole idea, even the whole foundation of Nozick's thought experiment, the whole idea of ethical hedonism is contrary to scripture. There are human beings out there, Tony, that spend a great deal of time and effort avoiding things that might be temporarily pleasurable to the body, but they know will be ultimately destructive to the mind and the heart. So anyway, the inventors of this Halo headband decided that they were going to take this thought experiment kind of one step further. So what they decided was, with AI, now we're getting into the point where, 1974 was Nozick, right? Now we're getting to the point where this isn't a theory anymore. This isn't a thought experiment. With AI, they're now going to have technology and, neural abilities to actually make this become a reality. The problem, according to Prophetic, is that these experience machines, and I'm going to quote from one of their blogs on their website, the problem with these experience machines is that they deny the user's noetic sovereignty, their inalienable right to determine the content of their consciousness. So they're telling you flat out that unless you take action, you're not even going to have control anymore over what you think about. It's going to be determined for you. So here's the problem we need a solution to. If you still want control over your thoughts and your emotions and who you fall in love with and moral decisions you want to make, if you want to maintain noetic sovereignty, you're going to have to take steps to make sure that you do it. Now, their solution is, um, if you go into a dream state where your conscience can be hacked, if you go lucid and you have access to your, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, you can control that dream. You can control that interface. You can control everything according to your morals and the knowledge that you have in your head. But where that's faulty, Tony, is if you are in a lucid dream, if you've crossed a threshold, if you are in the astral, if you're in the upside down, you have already entered into an agreement. You've left your first estate.
Mm.
We're terrestrial beings. If you cross the threshold into the second heaven or into the astral realm, you are already on their turf. So even if you're lucid, you're already somewhere where you don't belong. So how sovereign are you going to be when going back to the cosmic tortoise and the hare, you're the hare here. You're dealing with ancient,
Mm-hmm.
ageless beings that can steal candy from a baby. That's what it is like interacting with us. We're not that hard to figure out. So the idea that if we have access to our feudal limited little brains while we're up on their turf, that is going to be enough to not be outwitted or outmatched by them, it's actually that's hubris right there, to think that we somehow, dude, we can't even go overseas on a foreign vacation and navigate ourselves around a foreign country. We don't know the language, we don't know the customs, we don't know, the faux pas, like so to think that we're going to go into another dimension and somehow be able to navigate that. So I don't know if this is making sense. I feel like this can be brought
Yeah.
together better. So maybe you can
So
help me summarize
no,
that.
I just want to agree with you. I mean, this is the final battleground. This is the final battleground that we're experiencing, and it is a battle for your mind, your soul, your dreams. This is where the frontier has taken us, and there are legal routes that are going to be having to take place to in the natural sense, in the natural sense of, at what point is my brain's data not for sale? Because when this gets to, and listen, it's coming. It is coming. I mean, guys, 2017, we started the show. VR goggles wasn't a thing. And now you look at what's going on now in just 8 years. This stuff is coming. This technology is coming. And to follow that, and maybe the technology we have now will be translated into this, like the Apple glasses or whatever, or the Google glass. I don't remember. I don't even know this stuff. I should get some of it though, just to have experience, right? Have experience with it. But we're transitioning into. There's going to be hard questions. Like we're talking about the United States is on a hard push. We're in a cold war right now with China. Who's going to be the world leader in AI technologies? It's either United States or China. Trump has made it very clear that they're pushing hard for AI technology. This is part of AI technology. This kind of technology can get lumped underneath one broad, large roof. And with that, there has to come neurological rights that a human being gets. And those neurological rights that they're going to try implementing on a governmental level, like you can do this, you can't do that, you can't send advertisements to somebody in their dream state unless they check that box, which we all check anyways. And then everybody complains, why am I getting this happening in my dreams? It's because you checked the box. There's no other way to experience this unless you check the box. Therefore, people will be addicted to the fascination, the pleasure that it offers. They'll always check the box, therefore always opting to share their brain data. And so there's a lot of neurological rights that need to be explored with this. And I was looking into this idea in Chile. I don't know if you saw this, but Chile kind of went down this. They're the first country in the world that started implementing on a government level neurological rights, and saying what you can and cannot do with people's brain data. And that's Chile. Like people. Listen, if you're in Chile right now listening, I love you, but you're not on a competitive level when it comes to the United States, China, Russia, these superpowers of the world. If Chile is doing this, there's a real danger, right? But what's the effect going to be on a global level if Chile does it? Minimal. Now we have United States and China hard pressed forward in the whole AI agenda. Now, when it comes to neurological things and your brain data paired with the AI agenda, the United States government, I'm making a call to action. The United States, I know they're listening right now. What they need to do is that there needs to be a hard press legal action as to what you can do with people's brain data. However, That all said, I hope I painted that picture enough for you. That said, it's irrelevant when the technology being used that's gathering the brain data that has these rules and regulation underneath the gathering of the brain data becomes irrelevant when that very technology has been given to us by entities that do not operate underneath the laws of the United States government. So if these entities are extracting brain data and they're sharing that brain data to Lindsay Graham, who we all know is a freaking nefarious person. I've never met anybody in this world who enjoys the presence of Lindsay Graham. So let's just say Lindsay Graham. But these entities are extracting data. So Lindsay Graham can extract the data, and I'm just using that. It just came to my head. I try, you can put any deplorable politician in that place. But Lindsey Graham, Hillary Clinton, they can't extract the data, but these entities can. And because you don't believe that these entities exist, because you don't believe that the other realm exists, you don't believe that these entities are actually operating and warring for your soul in the other realm continually 24/7, because you don't believe you're a supernatural being living a spiritual existence, you will never come to the conclusion that entities are extracting your brain data, going around the checkbox loophole, and giving it to nefarious people in this realm. Did I paint the picture enough? I don't know.
Preach it, brother. Preach it. That was the best sermon I heard all week. That's amazing. Yes. Amen to all of that. We said at the beginning that we're going to give the listeners a shovel. So if you Google neural rights, another phrase you can use is cognitive liberty. That's what we're talking about. So this is fascinating / terrifying, Tony. Neurodata, let's define that, because that's what they're mining. So what do you mean by that when you say you're mining stuff from my brain? It's generally defined as information generated by a person's brain, spinal cord, or nervous system that is, this is the scary part, that is collected and interpreted by a device. So you're not just collecting it.
Yeah.
So let's say you have some machine that collects all of my emotion. You have a machine now
deciding
that might not be able to differentiate my childhood trauma from anger
or curiosity.
Yeah.
So just to jump in real quick with you, don't lose your train of thought. But what I was saying earlier about me being a dystopian futurist, what does that mean? It means I think about dark things, how they're going to happen in the future. What if that technology isn't distinguishing the fact that this was me theorizing of something that could possibly happen to me thinking about how I'm going to do something?
Exactly. Well, and a fascinating thing about the non-conscious brain, and this is why I'm really careful what I watch and listen to and put into my brain, that the non-conscious brain is a warehouse. It stores every single thing you've ever seen and heard in your life. Now, you don't have access to it, so you don't remember it at all times. There is no emotion or analyzation or morality attached to any of those memories. It's just a warehouse. And so the brain, the non-conscious brain, for example, does not differentiate between a movie you saw. Let's say you saw a movie where a woman was being violently assaulted, and you processed that movie. You vicariously experienced emotions watching that. The non-conscious brain doesn't differentiate whether you watched that as a movie or you experienced it. And so, is this neurodata also picking apart my non-conscious brain? Every movie I've seen, every conversation I've overheard other people having, like, what sort of device is going to be interpreting all of this for me? And how accurate is it going to be? And so, man, It's terrifying, Tony.
Yeah. Listen, it can be terrifying, but we know it has to get terrifying for it to get good, right?
That's right.
And so we were talking about earlier, it's like, oh, go deeper, and we promise it'll get better. But at the end of the day, we have scriptural prophecies and revelation that shows us how at the end there's a winner, and we know who that is. And so, though it can be it can be scary, but let's try to transfer our scary feelings to curiosity and intrigue, knowing the outcome, because then it's not as scary as much as it is just trying to see what's coming, because maybe we can dodge some of the hurt along the way. So you know what I'm saying? I think before we end this recording here, I said I was going to open the show with this, but I forgot, and I do want to end it with this, because if you have listened to this recording and you've gotten this far, we highly encourage you to reach out to myself, to Vicki. We know that this show, this episode, I almost called you my wife, Lindsay. Vicki's books and the content that she creates, they affect people, and sometimes it affects people in a negative way, perceived negative way, where they get angry. But it affects people in a positive way too. And you've had people reach out to you. And I've had people do the same to me on several occasions. But last time you were on the show was you were here in studio, and somebody reached out to you about that. I'd like for you to share that story before we wind it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was in studio with you and Joel, we did an episode called Liminal Spaces. And for some reason, Tony, I was totally off my game that day. I had been out of town for several days, so I was on the road. And you know, when you're living out of your suitcase, and I showed up, and it was just one of those days where the enemy was in my head, and I just felt fat and ugly. My hair was terrible, like everything about it. So I came into it just like not feeling good. And then um I get into the studio, and you know, all of the lights, the super 10K cameras, and I'm like, oh no, every pore in my face is gonna show. This is terrible. Right. And so my brain space, I was just being totally messed with. And we were sort of off script. We're like, we're just gonna do something organic, we're just gonna chit chat. And, you and Joel are talking about all the portals and stuff. And, I sort of reverted back to this junior high/high school mindset. Like, why am I even here? I don't belong here. These two guys could have a perfect conversation without me. I'm just da da da. Like, I was in meltdown mode the whole time. I'm second guessing everything I'm saying. By the time I left, I didn't even remember pretty much anything we talked about. And I was in a oppressive sort of funk for about 3 days after that. And it was bad. And I recognized it as probably warfare, but I sent like meltdown texts to both you and Joel the next morning, like,
You did.
take that part out. And I was like, I was praying like behind your guys' back. Let the whole audio be destroyed. Like,
How
don't let
dare
it
you?
don't let it air.
Sabotaging my show.
I was just so in my own, like, 16-year-old Vicki just like came to the fore. So anyway, the day eventually came where the podcast went live, and I was like, oh my goodness, oh no, oh no, oh no. And I was just bracing for impact. And of course, as it always does, because your listeners are awesome. Yes, I'm placating to your audience, but no, seriously, they are. And I mean, I just got a tremendous bump. I got tons of, comments and people following me on Instagram and whatever. And so I was kind of like, okay, okay. So I love the fact that people don't see what you see, and so I just left it at that. And it came and went, and it was just history at that point. So a couple weeks ago, I got a very, very heartfelt, lengthy email from a man who was talking about how life-changing of an event that podcast was for him. And he mentioned you and Joel as well. And he was talking about basically, I'm going to get back with God. I'm going to take this seriously. And I don't even know, Tony, I don't remember if he even specifically mentioned anything particular that any of us said that was gripping for him. But I learned a major lesson, probably for the 100th time in my life. But what the Lord showed me in that moment was none of this is about you, Vic. It's not about your hair or how articulate your words are. These things that you hide behind and take confidence in, you've done your research and you know big words. None of that is what changes lives. That's not what penetrates a dark heart. It's if the Spirit of God chooses to work through you, it doesn't matter how beautiful or how ugly you are, what your vocabulary is, how much you've researched, whether you can write a book or not. And it should be encouraging for everyone listening, because if the Spirit of God is speaking through us, He's going to use us. But it really just um it was so it was a moment of utter humbling. And I love it when I'm humbled in a nice way, and not in a where when the pruner comes out with his chainsaw and starts lobbing the branches off. Those are the hard humblings. But it really allowed me to go forward in a different mindset now, that when I do these shows and things, that doesn't matter if it's your best day, doesn't matter if you're tired, doesn't matter if you're prepared or not, and it doesn't matter if you stumble on your words, or if you have brain fog, or if your hair looks like crap, or if people comment that they make their comments, and there's always the people that they're going to comment about the way you look, or about how you know what the quality of your film and lighting, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Hmm.
hey, um it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. I, I'm of the persuasion, Tony, that if someone, we all scroll through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these things every day, these shorts and these reels and everything. If someone actually pauses to make a comment, even if it's nasty, something took root in you. Something took root. So anyway, I was just so encouraged by that. Of all the podcasts I've done, the fact that there was a transformational experience on the one that I was praying wouldn't even ever make it into the ether, it just it was just God's very kind way of saying, I'm in control. I'm in control, Vic. It's not about you. And I can use all of your pitiful little offerings, and I can still work with it. So even on my worst day, He's at work. And that was just really encouraging to me.
That's awesome. Vicki Joy Anderson. That was awesome. And so was this recording. And I could dwell with you for hours, but I have to run. So I appreciate you hopping on with me. I think this was a fantastic. I told you at the beginning, I said this has the potential to be a great recording, but if we're unable to relay the actual chutzpah of it, is that the right terminology? I don't know, but if we're, because there's a lot of times you sit down to hit something, you're like, oh, this is great, but you just can't hit those gears right to get it to relate to the audience the way you want it to. I think we hit it right today. So I hope people enjoyed it. Vicki Joy Anderson, it's been a pleasure. Before we get out of here, let people know where they can find you: social media, your book, everything.
Absolutely. Everything you could possibly need is at vickijoyanderson.com. You can contact me through there as well. The book, They Only Come Out at Night, Exposing the Dark Weapon of Sleep Paralysis, is available exclusively at lamarzulli.net. And I am on most socials as Vicki Joy Author. And you can find me on Rumble and YouTube as well. All those links are on my website.
Awesome, Vicki. It's good having you.
Great being here.